join.
Okay, let's play some
See our
goddamn
other
chess.
offerings. I know that there's a
Goddamn
lot more
son of a
in the works
goddamn
right now
bitch.
in terms of
Goddamn
bringing
it.
new courses, both long-form courses and 1 hour-long courses on
You
various
suck
topics
my
having to
dick,
do with the
bitch.
Bible.
You suck my
And so
dick,
go
bitch.
check us out. That's bartairman.com/BSA learning.
You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my fucking dick.
Likely grafted into this network. So when he arrived in Kansas, he wasn't just getting mentored by a random attorney. He was being brought into a network that had already demonstrated its willingness to use any means necessary.
You suck my dick, bitch. What the goddamn fuck happened to the goddamn video, you goddamn son of a goddamn bitch?
Including violence and deception
you
to achieve their political goals.
Bitch. Suck
Schofield
my
had
slut.
to have had some sort of support at this point.
Street
the evidence
whore.
for this, or some kind of backing, becomes clear when you look
Come
at the
on, you
logistics of
slant-eyed
his move
slut.
to Kansas.
Man, that was a
Schofields
damn good carrot
moved
cake.
with a household of 7 people.
Start the
goddamn
game. Start the goddamn game.
Can't afford
Start
to
the
support
goddamn. Start the goddamn
some
game.
sort of support.
Slut.
Been grafted into something by this point, and you'll see why in the next couple of minutes. So through his work with John J. Ingalls, Schofield began to rise in Kansas politics, and eventually Schofield, through his connections, was able to become a Kansas state representative. From this position, he then helped John J. Ingalls become the senator. This part's pretty interesting, because when the election rolled around,
okay, you slut
as
that
Kansas was
slut
preparing
from
to elect
China.
a new U.S. senator, the incumbent, Samuel Pomeroy,
Move your
had
slut
fallen
that
out of
slut
favor,
ass, you
and
slut.
people wanted him out.
Suck my
Schofield
dick,
was
bitch.
asked to give a suggestion for who should run, and he was given the assurance that who he picked would win. And Schofield reportedly suggested Ingalls to run against him. And when they had the election, after all the
Suck
voting,
my dick,
initially
bitch.
it looked like Pomeroy had won re-election.
You suck
But
my
as he stood up to give
motherfucking
his
dick.
victory speech, one of the legislators publicly revealed that Pomeroy had offered him a $7,000 bribe, which is a lot of money back then.
Wow, that woman smells
He
like
apparently
spit.
bribed him in exchange for his vote,
Pit.
and then the election was thrown out, and then Ingalls ended up winning the election. And here's the thing, we already kind of established that Kansas and just the western states in general were pretty corrupt at this time. So a lot of political deals involved money changing hands to some capacity, right? The revelation of Pomeroy's $7,000 bribe was honestly less a shocking
Stupid!
to tip the scales in favor
Because
of
that was
Ingalls.
fucking stupid.
Because in that same
fuck.
room where all of this was exposed, Pomeroy had paid out several of the legislators.
Suck my motherfucking
right? A lot
dick,
of them
bitch.
received money from him. The more interesting thing to notice is not the fact that
Stupid!
off the
You stupid
legislators.
fucking.
The more
Kiss
interesting
that!
question is,
Kiss
why
that!
was he exposed
Kiss that
to so
whore
much
goodbye,
fame?
slut.
We'll leave that there for now.
Go to hell,
But
you
after being
whore.
accepted to the Senate, John J. Ingalls nominated and elected
Suck my
Schofield as a
fucking
district
dick.
attorney. Which brings us to his
I
downfall
fucked
and the
his
more
hole!
mysterious and intriguing
Stupid
parts of his
fucker.
life.
Stupid.
So,
The stupid
Schofield's
machine.
time as DA fell apart almost
Stupid
immediately.
motherfucker.
Like
You
within
stupid
6
fucking
months, he was
cunt.
forced to resign under a cloud of corruption charges, mostly about
Suck my
bribery.
fucking dick.
Ironically, he accepted a bribe from Pomeroy,
Suck
the
my
former
motherfucking
Kansas
dick.
senator. He allegedly bribed Schofield into not prosecuting his bribery case, which is pretty funny. But it is also kind of weird because,
Suck
as we
my
said earlier,
fucking
everyone was
dick.
bribing everybody. The West was corrupt. So, and this is my opinion, it can't be for no reason that Schofield was run out. Because he likely could have pulled some strings to get this smoothed
Suck
over.
my fucking
But
dick.
it didn't happen. And by the end of 1874, Schofield had abandoned everything. He fled Kansas
Suck my
and left behind
motherfucking
his wife
dick,
and his
bitch.
children, left them poor, and then he vanished from
You
the public
suck my
life.
dick, bitch.
Following this, Schofield
Suck
just
my
disappears from the
dick,
historical
bitch.
record for 3 to 5 years. From 1874 to around 1879 to 80, there's effectively a gap in time where we don't really know what he was doing.
You suck
His
my
official biographer,
motherfucking
Trumbull,
dick.
claims that Schofield returned to law practice in St. Louis, but this is kind of unlikely, and Schofield probably lied to Trumbull. Because Schofield was never admitted to the
Suck my
Kansas or Missouri
motherfucking dick,
bar.
bitch.
He couldn't legally practice law
Suck
on his
my
own, or he
fucking
couldn't
dick.
have a law office. So where was he? What was he doing? We don't really know. And the only reason why it says 3 to 5 years, right, why there's a sort of ambiguous gap, is because where he
Suck
does
my
pop up in the
fucking
historical
dick.
record is for charges of fraud,
Suck
essentially
my
writing false
motherfucking
checks
dick,
and
bitch.
forging his sister's signature multiple
Oh, I
times in that
fucked up.
period.
God damn.
It was also
I
alleged at
fucked
the
up.
time that he had served some jail time in Canada. But regardless, this period remains
Suck
relatively
my
ambiguous
fucking dick.
until his supposed conversion. It might seem mean, honestly, to say supposed conversion, but I think once you hear the details, it's fine.
Suck
Around
my dick, bitch.
1879 or 1880, it's alleged that Schofield had undergone a dramatic conversion to Christianity, being led to faith by a man named Tom McPheeters. Now, who was McPheeters? So, Tom McPheeters was a successful and evangelical businessman from a prominent St. Louis family.
Oh my
A man
good
who
God,
had a
fuck.
reputation for being both deeply devout and very
Suck
discerning,
my dick, bitch.
only working with the most capable and reputable attorneys in St. Louis. Now here's where this gets weird. Schofield claimed that this conversion happened in his own law office, and that McPheeters
Suck my
came in
dick,
for
bitch.
legal counsel. After which they spoke about the gospel, and Schofield decided to become a Christian. But there's a problem with this, because as we
Suck my
established,
fucking dick.
Schofield wasn't a licensed attorney at the time. So, one, why would he have a law office? And two, why would a careful and reputable man like McPheeters seek legal counsel from Schofield? Additionally, Schofield claimed that he was 36 years old when this happened, which would place the conversion around 1879. But this is also the same time when he was dealing with the fallout from his fraudulent activities.
Suck my
So he
fucking dick.
presumably
You
wanted to
suck
be
my
converted
fucking
and then
dick.
continued to commit fraud under the
Suck my
courts.
dick, bitch.
That doesn't sound right. Additionally, it was also interesting, around this time of his alleged conversion, a St. Louis newspaper reported that a forgery charge against Schofield had been dropped due to lack of evidence,
You suck
and the
my
report went on to
motherfucking
praise Schofield
dick.
as a gentleman who had held positions of trust,
Suck
completely
my
whitewashing
dick,
his
bitch.
prior fraudulent
You suck
activities,
my
which
motherfucking
rightly
dick.
leads us to suspect external hands
Suck
were
my dick,
crafting
bitch.
a false narrative to pave the way
Suck
for his
my
re-emergence
motherfucking
and
dick.
for his re-entrance into the public eye. After all, if this was a genuine conversion experience, why was he still neglecting his abandoned family? Right? Why didn't he go back to his family and make things right? And also, why didn't he make things right with the law? Why was he allowing these mysterious benefactors to solve his legal problems? This is all confusing and ambiguous, but what we do know for certain is that by 1880, Schofield had somehow become connected
Suck
with
my
Reverend
dick, bitch.
James H. Brooks. So Brooks was one
Suck
of the most
my
prominent
motherfucking
voices
dick.
in American evangelicalism at the time,
You
being
suck my
especially known for
motherfucking
his
dick.
strong stance on biblical
Suck my
inerrancy
dick,
and
bitch.
for popularizing
Suck my
dispensational
motherfucking
prophecy
dick.
in the South. His views were really similar to that of John Nelson Darby and
Suck
the
my
Plymouth
fucking
Brethren.
dick.
And he is reported to have had an
Suck my
immense
fucking
influence on
dick.
Schofield, who would later refer to Brooks
Suck
as
my
a,
fucking
quote,
dick.
father in the faith. And it was under Brooks's mentorship that Schofield began to absorb this dispensational framework that would later define his work. Brooks was also
Suck my
instrumental
fucking
in
dick.
bringing D.L. Moody to St. Louis for his 1879 to 1880 evangelistic campaign, and through Brooks, Schofield was introduced into Moody's inner circle. This is the weird part.
Suck my
Right,
fucking
so barely
dick.
a few months earlier, Schofield was writing false checks and committing fraud.
Suck my
And
dick.
now he's
Suck
becoming
my
a part of
fucking
D.L.
dick.
Moody's evangelism crusade.
Suck my
If you don't
fucking
know,
dick.
D.L. Moody is the guy in evangelicalism. Right? He was incredibly popular. He was like the Billy Graham of that day. He was the
God
most
damn it.
famous evangelist at the end of the 19th century. And yet, somehow, despite his shady past, lack of formal training, Cyrus Schofield found himself being one of Moody's key associates. This is really suspicious and
Suck
weird.
my fucking
Why was
dick.
he there? How did he get there? This is really weird, considering the turnaround. He goes from fraud to presumably a Christian, and rather than going back to his family, who he abandoned,
Suck my fucking dick.
instead now he joins D.L. Moody's evangelism campaign. This is weird, right? And it's especially weird when
Suck
you think
my
about the money,
fucking
too.
dick.
So these campaigns, they weren't paid positions. They were basically
Suck
freelance,
my
unpaid
fucking
ministry,
dick.
and you had to cover your own living expenses and travel and food. Yet somehow, Schofield was not only allowed into helping out on the campaign, but he was able to afford his own provisions and board. This is weird. How was he supporting himself? Also, how did he ingratiate himself into this group so quickly? So much so that by 1882, Schofield was given a license to preach.
Man, that
was given
goddamn
a
Holy Ghost
local
pisses me
congregational
off.
church to be the pastor of. Less than 3 years after
Suck my
his
fucking
legal
dick.
troubles. He was given this despite having no formal education, no theology degree, no seminary training. In
Suck
fact, he
my
would
fucking
lie
dick.
about having a doctorate in divinity. The timeline of this is just absolutely insane. It makes no sense. Most people spend years studying before entering ministry. I went to a Bible college. I've seen how long it takes to do that. Schofield went from like a disgraced fraudster to licensed pastor in under 3 years. That's ridiculous, right? Now, as I said earlier, it's like the JFK assassination. Nowhere does it say we killed JFK. But when you just look at these connections, it's obvious someone was funding it, right? The timeline is insane. And you see these little snippets all over the place. Like in 1901, Schofield was preaching a sermon at Moody's Church in Chicago, and he casually mentioned something about, when I'm in London, as if that were just like a normal thing, like he goes to London all the time. There's no public record of him going to London prior to writing the Schofield Bible. So who sent him to London? Why was he there? How does he afford going on transatlantic trips like that?
You suck my fucking dick, you fucking
ignoring the
bitch.
fact
You
that he somehow was able to become
fucked up
connected
bitch.
to D.L. Moody, the most popular evangelist of that day.
Suck my
ignoring all of
fucking
that,
dick.
he had just all this money that wouldn't make sense. Schofield had multiple homes that he would just live at while he's traveling. Schofield clearly had
You suck my
some
goddamn
kind of
motherfucking
connection,
core
which
ass
is what
dick.
leads us to talk about the Lotus Club.
Fucking son of a bitch.
This is probably the most significant and most telling
Bitch, you suck my
connection. This
motherfucking
one
dick, bitch.
is the source of the, quote, conspiracy theories about Schofield. Because, really, it's not a conspiracy.
Stupid! Because I was fucking stupid.
Of the evidence when it comes to the money aspect. So, in 1901, Cyrus Schofield was admitted to membership in what's called the Lotus Club, which was an elite invitation-only social club in Manhattan that catered primarily to journalists and artists and cultural influencers, right? It wasn't just like any drinking beer with the bros kind of thing. This was a big deal, right? The membership included former presidents like Grover Cleveland and Teddy Roosevelt, and media figures like Joseph Pulitzer or Mark Twain even. It was a lot of big names. And somehow, Schofield was nominated to be a part of that. Right, this is prior to making his reference Bible, which came out in 2009. He was admitted in 2001. And there's no way that he could afford it. There was membership fees, and there was annual dues, plus the cost of meals.
Fucking goddamn holy
There's
fucking
no way
dick
Schofield would have been able to afford this from his ministry work
Come on, you
alone.
dick sucker.
And his membership was sponsored by a wealthy man named Horatio Nelson Fraser, and seconded by John Elderkin, who was a key figure within the club's committees.
You suck my
Here's the
fucking
kicker,
dick.
though. One of the members of the literary committee
you stupid fucking
admission was a man named Samuel
How does it feel,
Untermeyer.
bitch? No, you got
Untermeyer was
you got your
a
ass
powerful New
fucked.
York
How does it feel?
political
How does it
figure,
feel to know that you
and
got?
committed
How does it
Zionist.
feel to know you got
So this
your
is
dick
where the
sucked?
source of the theories typically come from.
Alright,
but they're
fuck
pretty blatant.
his
Honestly.
hole.
Untermeyer was
He
so powerful
sucked his
that he
dick.
allegedly
Dick. He sucked this
blackmailed
dick.
President Woodrow Wilson into putting Brandeis on the Supreme Court. So let's think about this for a second. A man like that
get your
was
dick
in charge
sucked.
of allowing Schofield into this elite club where he gets to rub elbows with all these powerful men.
Come
and up until this point,
sucker.
Schofield's literary output consisted of what?
Come
like
and get your
tracts
fucking
and
dick
pamphlets. He wrote Rightly
Come
Dividing the
get
Word
your
of
dick
Truth, but that's
sucked.
it. There's no logical reason why
Come and get your
these
fucking dick
elite
sucked, you
figures would find
cocksucker.
Schofield to be a acceptable fit for their exclusive
Come
club.
get your dick
unless,
sucked.
of course, his theological work was seen as being able to serve some other purpose. And the fact that Untermeyer accepted Schofield
Come
in his
and get
group
your
kind of
goddamn
indicates
dick sucked.
why. Right, this was a man whose life was completely removed
Come and get
from the
your dick
circle
sucked.
Schofield normally ran in. Yet somehow Untermeyer accepted Schofield into the group. Right, so why would a committed Zionist support the membership of a hick Bible teacher?
Come and get your dick
It's obvious
sucked.
because the theology, with its emphasis on a future restoration
Come and get
of
your
Israel,
goddamn
was
dick, you
extremely
goddamn suck,
helpful
you son of a
in getting
bitch.
fundamentalist Christians to back Zionist interests. His theology provided the
Boom!
religious
God
justification for supporting the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. Now, this isn't just to pin all of this on one man. That's dumb, right? The theology was such that all it took was a little push in America for it to spread like wildfire. It wasn't this massive
Come and get your
overarching
fucking
thing,
dick sucked.
but nevertheless, there was a little bit of manipulation in it. Which brings us to the
Come and
actual
get your dick
Scofield Reference
sucked.
Bible. Now, the development of the Scofield Reference Bible was financed by a small group of wealthy men. I don't know if they were Zionists or not.
Come and get your dick
Honestly,
sucked.
it's a little ambiguous. And
Come and
everything
get your dick
about it, it's
sucked.
kind of mundane, the parts of him creating it. There's some stuff, but it's not as interesting.
No!
What's
Come
more
and get your dick
remarkable is
sucked.
the fact that the
Come
Bible
and
was
get your
published
dick
by
sucked.
Oxford University Press. This
Come
is
and
the
get
probably
your dick
next
sucked.
to the Lotus Club. This is one of the more absurd parts of the Scofield Reference Bible.
Stupid! I'm fixing that ear, you
One of
rook.
the world's
Like cutting
most
off your right
prestigious
ear.
academic
Oh,
publishers.
you fucked up,
Right.
son of a
They
bitch. You
didn't
wanna try to
publish
block
study Bibles,
threaten my bishop with
especially
that
ones
fucking
with such
whore?
a specific
I'll take your
theological
whore
agenda
instead of you
behind
fucking
it.
rook, you son of a bitch.
And especially one where the theology was
Come
closer
and get
to
your dick sucked.
that of a cult rather than that of being mainline Protestant.
Dumbass fucker.
This was a massive,
Come and
credible,
get your dick
respected
sucked.
institution that published this book.
Stupid! Cause that was
There's
fucking
no way
stupid as fuck.
it didn't do it without some
How
strings
the
being
fuck
pulled,
can you be
or
that
without some
goddamn
ulterior
fucking
motive.
stupid?
Which is why it's
That was
important to
fucking
know
stupid.
the way that
I'll take your
Oxford
whore over
University
your...
worked.
I changed
Prior
my
to
mind
the
about ear
1950s
and
in
you
England, there were only two main
Stick my dick in
universities,
your whore's
Oxford
butt.
and Cambridge, with Oxford being the preferred university for aspiring politicians. Which is
Now
why it's
fuck
not
up and
elite
over this
to
so I can
assume
ear
that
you.
Oxford
Now I will
University
ear
Press
you, Rook.
would function as
God
the
damn
sort
it.
of propaganda arm of the British Empire in order to present people in politics with the sort of range of opinions that are within the British imperialist orthodoxy. This is why it's also important to note that the second
Come and get
edition
your dick
of the
sucked.
Schofield Reference Bible came out in 1917,
Come and get your
the same
dick
year
sucked.
as the Balfour Declaration.
Come and
Whatever you
get your
want with
fucking
that.
dick
But
sucked.
it is kind of clear in that, in regards to the Balfour Declaration,
Come and
the
get your
Schofield
dick
Bible
sucked.
in England helped to prepare the way for Britain's Middle East imperialist ambitions. But as far as the child connections that you hear about, I looked, I can't find anything. But now that might just be me not finding it. So if you know anything, just comment down below and tell me whatever links you have or whatever you got. But apart from that, this has just been a general overview over the life of Schofield.
Man, what the
Adding
fuck
some
did I just
context
do?
for a lot of the theories you might hear.
Man, I'm
about the funding of the
about to
Reference
get my
Bible,
dick...
and
You
of
stupid
just his weird
motherfucker.
career and the weird
Stupid
money.
idiot,
Hopefully you found this
idiot,
helpful. And as I mentioned
stupid
earlier,
idiot,
there's no document
stupid, you
point that
absent-minded
says,
bitch.
we hired Schofield to promote a Zionist agenda. But when a disgraced
suck my
fraudster
motherfucking
becomes
dick,
the most
bitch.
influential Bible teacher in American history, and all of his legal troubles disappear, and he's accepted into an elite literary club by a committed Zionist and one of the most powerful men in American politics, the pattern becomes pretty
Come
obvious.
and get your dick
So
sucked.
with that, if you want any more information over Schofield, but more specifically dispensational theology and the theology that came from his reference Bible,
Come and
you
get...
might find my video about
come
Christian
on,
Zionism
come on,
to be
you
pretty
dick
interesting.
sucker.
Thanks for watching. God
Come
bless.
and get your dick sucked. Son of a bitch. Come and get your dick sucked. With Uzi Emily. Come and get your dick sucked. Come and get your fucking dick sucked, you fucking dick sucker. Dick.
You are listening to Cemetery Confessions, the world's #1 Goth Talk podcast.
You stupid goddamn motherfucker. Suck my dick, bitch.
Cool.
Suck my
welcome
motherfucking
back
dick,
to
bitch.
Cemetery Confessions. On this episode,
It's
we
time
are
to do the
cracking
March of
the
Death.
lid of a dusty casket labeled "What?"
March!
We'll also
Come and
tap
get
the
your dick
vein
sucked.
on the great gatekeeping conundrum and explore the haunted house
Come and get your dick
known
sucked.
as the music industry, haunted by ghosts of goth in mainstream media. Our guest this episode is Sam, a preternatural creature of the night, who also happens to be the lead for the boldly theatrical goth band, Hertzfall. So, Sam, thank you for joining us. Let's start at the beginning. What was your journey into the goth subculture?
It's not just a phase, Mum, as they say. It was
Come and get your dick
It was
sucked.
a real mix of things. So I suppose it's media, films, TV, books. You know, like Edgar Allan Poe.
What?
There were romantic poets we did at school. A Nightmare Before Christmas on VHS, which I must
Come
have
and get your
worn
dick
out
sucked.
the tape on.
Yeah.
There's only one
yeah,
goddamn
we can all
thing you
relate
can
to
do.
that one. And the music.
Now I'm gonna
Music
stick my
was a bit of a
March!
journey for me. So
son of a
to
bitch.
start with, I was definitely more of like a metalhead actually in my teens. But growing up, like before that as a kid, my mum would play me
March, you mutt.
80s
March, you motherfucker.
hits. So there'd be like these compilation CDs with everyone on it. So you had on it like
March!
Kate Bush, Depeche Mode, OMD, things like that. So you can kind of see
March!
the groundwork being laid. And my dad
March!
like more sort of country folk. My stepdad liked more
March!
what would you call it, like singer-songwritery stuff, or bands like 10,000 Maniacs.
March!
And, you know, I discovered Tori Amos CDs in his collection.
yeah.
So you can kind
March!
of see all these building blocks of my life. And then
With
what was
pit
cool
smell.
when I was young,
Oozes.
you had
Oozes.
Evanescence on Top of the Pops.
Yep.
Which is like for those listening who maybe don't know, it's this. I think it's only in the UK. I don't think whenever it's
I'm tasting that
yeah,
goddamn
it's a
thing
UK
all
thing.
across the
It
goddamn
is a UK
board.
thing. And it's a weird show of you run down what's in the charts,
March!
but also it's interspersed with like
March!
interviews and performances. And it's almost like a news show on pop music that week. Anyway, it
March!
used to be really successful. It got cancelled, but they still do the Christmas ones. But my point being,
Come and get your
I
dick
saw that,
sucked.
and it was just like, oh, this is for me. This isn't my mom. This isn't my dad. This is like current. This is
I'll chase
now.
that King Olive
And I was
across
like,
the goddamn board.
not quite sure what I like about this, but it's dark and there's strings and piano and everyone's in black and you know there was like candles and it was all a little bit over the
I'll
top.
chase that
And
goddamn
so
King Olive.
that led me down a rabbit hole of metal and like gothic metal. So there was then Lacuna Coil, Nightwish. We then got to Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride.
Yep.
And eventually something just yeah, you know exactly what I'm saying. Something just sort of
Hell no, I'm
snapped
gonna
one day,
kick your
like
fucking
a
ass.
eureka
Hell no,
moment
I'm
of,
gonna kick your ass.
I like the metal
Slut.
and the guitars, but what I really
Not!
like is when they call it gothic metal, and it's like, what is this?
Hell no, I'm gonna
thing?
kick
What
your
is
fucking
that?
ass.
And I can't remember exactly what sort of pushed me over, but one day I just started going, okay, let's go down this rabbit hole and work out what
I'll
goth
chase
is.
that goddamn
So I
King
started
Olive
taking
across the
myself to
goddamn
these like
chessboard.
goth meetups. I
March!
was living in London at the time, so I'd just go and you just meet people. We used to go to Slime Light
Hell no,
all
I'm gonna
together.
kick your fucking ass.
I didn't have a clue what I was
March!
doing, you know, which I quite enjoyed. Like, I think that's how it was when
March!
the scene started. It was the DIY makeup and you cut up some clothes and it looks terrible and then you go and get something else.
March!
So I found my way and I just thought, oh, okay, this is it. This is where I want to be. This is me.
I guess let's just jump right into the deep end. And that's this discussion that we really haven't had on this podcast in a while, but we're bringing it back.
I fucked it.
So I'll start
Oh,
Sam, just to
hell no, I
ask
ain't gonna
what
take it
to you
goddamn stomach when I'm about to
is
fuck
the
your
essence of
butt.
goth, or I guess
When
what
my dick's
elements
about
sort
to
of
hang out the
collectively
fucking mouth puking
give
cum.
rise to goth. in your
Stupid
opinion?
bitch.
Wow, yeah, that is a big question. That's
Stupid
a hefty
fucking
question that has a lot of debate raging right now online. So I suppose I want to preface it by saying, like,
This is
Come on,
my
you
opinion.
cunt.
It is subject to change with new information.
Yeah.
I feel like these days, you say something and that's it. People will then hold you to that forever and will attack you on something. It's like, I don't know when that happened. I don't know, maybe it was always like that and I was ignorant to it. I don't know. But anyway, it's also quite a hard thing to define. I mean, I'm going to have a go at it. Don't get me wrong. But I think it is very subjective. But there are a few things that I think everybody can agree on, or at least us three right now. I think we could agree on these.
This is boring.
So, and I like to look into things. So as soon as I started, discovering what this thing is that I might want to identify with, I started looking up what that is. And, you get all the obvious things about, the clothes, wearing black and having some interest in specific books and film and, the darker things in life, as it were. But I think the most important bit is that it is a music-based subculture. So I think you have to like the music, love the music. It doesn't have to be your absolute favourite genre and the only thing you listen to, but I think you have to have a genuine appreciation for the music that is played by other goths. I think that's the most important thing, actually. The next one, I would say, is politically. Now, there's been a lot of discourse going around about being
goddamn
conservative
good
goth, and that's really, kicking off at the moment. I think politically you must at least be open-minded and not be looking to put others down for being different to you. I've worded that really carefully. I think I could be a politician, right? Because it is a very left-leaning, it's a very anti-racist movement with punk roots,
Stupid! You
have to align to exactly these values.
The stupid machine!
But I don't think you should be in that space if you're looking to put others down for the things they can't control, And what got me thinking like this is this Johnny Cash song, which I really can't remember off the top of my head, about how he's wearing black to mourn society's failures towards the poor, the oppressed, and forgotten. And I just remember thinking like,
you blundered a fucking queen, you son of a bitch.
Maybe I wasn't conscious of that was why, but now that I know that that's an option, it's like, yes, I will continue wearing black until the world is a better place for everyone.
That's Man in Black. The song is Man in Black.
Oh, is that it? Yes.
Spit.
Absolutely. And there's not like one quote from it that I was going to pick, because he kind of goes into it with each verse, doesn't he, as to like all the different people who've been left behind.
Yep.
Suck my motherfucking dick,
that was
bitch.
it. Man in Black. And, during my readings and
suck my motherfucking
bits of
slut.
research that I've been doing, I also found a really nice bit of work from Dusty Gurnan, who we all know as Goth Dad.
Suck my dick. You suck
so
my dick,
I am
bitch.
going to read it out. So this is from an
Suck my
interview he did.
motherfucking dick, bitch. You son of a bitch.
So it's not fear-based, speaking of the goth scene, and I think there's a lot of beauty that can be found in darker things. I've had to find that a lot of my life I'm surrounded by awful, terrible, tragic things, but you still see moments of beauty within the margins. And I think that's what the goth community
take that goddamn bishop of your
subculture
knife.
really
So I can
espouse,
stick my dick up your rook's butt.
as well as that a sense of, things are terrible and awful.
Fucker.
So much ugliness, darkness in the world, but we still have to exist, and we have to thrive. We have to love and find our happiness and our meaning and purpose. And you can do that within the confines of something really bad.
Suck my dick, bitch.
So I had to read that one out because I couldn't be as eloquent as that. I don't think.
Suck my fucking dick.
No, Dusty's great.
Yeah, we love Dusty here.
We love
so
Dusty,
funny.
and I remember first starting out on the scene and being like, what do I wear? And this was like, when TikTok was just kicking off. And
hell no, I'm going to
like,
kick your fucking goddamn black ass, even if it is white.
Really helped me.
Me over you,
Which was
he
the
accepts your
intention,
draw.
right?
I'm about to stick my dick in
think
your
that's
butt.
so good to
My
hear.
dick's about to
I
hang
love
out
Dusty,
of your
and I
fucking
love how much
puke
he
and
loves
cum.
all people.
Both your gut and
You
my
said a few
dick.
things there that
from where my
agree
dick
with
was
and
puking
could
cum
maybe
as it
expand
migrated
on my
its
own
way all the
thoughts.
way up the fucking esophagus.
You mentioned looking into
After it
things that you're
wormed
interested
its
in
way
and
through your
being
gut,
interested in
puking
exploring
cum the
that.
whole fucking way.
And I think
You're gonna have a
that
belly
is
full of
one
cum that you
the
got puke up with my dick
important
puking
elements
cum.
of goth.
And my
Is that I
dick
think some
comes
people
out
sometimes
from my
say it
fucking mouth.
as goth is an intellectual subculture, which I can agree with. I guess I think that was maybe more
It's a
of
little
a 90s goth about it.
self-aggrandizing, but
It is, yeah. It
Come on,
can,
you dick
I don't
sucker.
disagree with it, but it
Come on,
can
you
be
fucking dick
problematic.
sucker.
yeah, yes. It almost has a bit of a class sentiment to it, which it usually comes along with this like academic study, complex jargon sort of
Come on, you
implication.
son of a bitch.
And I don't really like that very much, but I do think if you understand it as a sort of inquiry
Oh
or
my
questioning
bless your fucking soul.
of wanting to understand something or take the social apart and put it back together.
Man, this is
Asking why is goth?
This
Sorry, go
fucking
ahead.
combobulated.
I was going to say it's more of a questioning, seeking mindset rather than
Come on,
caring
you
about what the
goddamn son of
calcified
a
knowledge
bitch.
you've accumulated through, education or whatever. But it's just
son of a
having
bitch.
that drive to
You suck
seek
my
and explore
motherfucking
and learn.
dick, bitch. You suck
Yeah.
my dick, bitch.
I think that's a
Suck my dick, bitch.
how is goth? Why is goth? Those are philosophical questions, exploring the nature of something, and it's sort of a open conversation, a dialectical sort of aspect
Suck
of
my
goth, where
motherfucking dick, bitch.
it's an ongoing conversation, and I think most people are interested
You suck
in
my
that,
dick,
and
bitch. You suck my
so I
fucking
think
dick.
that was something I resonate with, and I think is part of the conversation when we're talking about what is goth. Mm-hmm. I also think, feel free to interrupt me. I can just sort of talk and talk and talk.
I can listen.
Suck my fucking dick.
It's absolutely fine. No, please do talk on it. I just find it really fascinating. But you just reminded me, I went to university and did
dick
English
sucker.
literature. And I did a module on Gothic literature. And I had this great lecturer, Alex Warwick, who is quite known in the Gothic literature circles. And we learned a lot in that. We could spend a whole episode breaking down, what the Gothic is in literature, but we're talking about the Goth scene.
This is really starting to
So I just
fucking
want to
piss
pick
me
one
the
bit
fuck
out of
off.
that, which was
Son of a
the
bitch.
dealing. One of the key components in some of the writing she's done is
You suck
saying
my
that
fucking
for something
dick.
to be Gothic, it needs
Son
to be
of a
dealing
bitch.
with the ills of the human existence. So it's a way of dealing with pain, grief, trauma, rejection, and I think that is
Suck my fucking dick,
not
bitch.
just true of the literature and the music. I think that's the whole scene, isn't it? I think that's what gets us when you're 12, 13, whatever it is. No one understands me, so I'm gonna draw black circles around my eyes. It's such a cliche, but it is true though, isn't it? That's what happens.
No, I
I'm still
agree.
doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about the literature first. I think that's sort of endemic of a philosophical aesthetic of goth, because like you said, there's a separation between Gothic literature and goth, but obviously they interact with each other,
Come on,
and that
you
bleeds
fucking
into
dick
like
sucker.
media, film and TV or comics, any of that kind of thing.
Come on, you dick sucker.
The way that I see that is this sort of culmination of like a lens of what, like you were saying, Trey, a mindset, a sort of way of viewing the world that has some generalities. Obviously,
Suck
no
my
two goths
fucking
will
dick.
agree completely on that.
Suck
But
my
I think
fucking
the way that
goddamn
I've sort of
dick.
seen that as having this lens of goth, this filter of life,
fuck.
as having three different components, being the uncanny, which is the
Suck my
like making
motherfucking dick,
strange of
bitch.
social conventions and that sort of thing, through like parody
Stupid fucker.
or morbidity or whatever. Poeticism, like sort of a emphasis on emotional
Suck my
experiences, that
dick,
sort of
bitch.
thing. And then
Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch.
what was the third thing? Oh, otherness.
Man, this is boring as fuck.
So this sort of, but it's this sort of like
an
goth attitude
otherness
or
from
vibe.
society.
Yeah. Yeah,
I guess where otherness could be nuanced
Suck my
would be
fucking
whether
dick.
it's self-conscious otherness, where you're purposely trying to be other,
Suck my
versus
fucking dick.
just being other and figuring out how
Against your
to
will.
exist in that situation. Not being other, but just you're just a weird kid kind of thing.
Right.
And how that works with
Bitch, you suck
society.
my
So it's whether it's a
motherfucking
conscious
dick, bitch.
choice to be other, like looking at society or looking at something and saying, I don't want to be that. I'm going to be
Bitch,
this
stupid
instead, versus
motherfucker.
I'm just going to be myself, damn the consequences, and that being inherently other to whatever group you
Munch.
happen to be surrounded by.
Suck my... Hell no, I'm
Yeah,
gonna kick your
I think I can,
goddamn ass.
Go along with that for sure. I also found on the Cemetery Confessions YouTube a video
Suck my
when I was
motherfucking
doing
dick,
my
bitch.
research to. I was determined to define it. I'm going to get to the bottom of
Suck my
what Goth is.
motherfucking dick, bitch.
No, I just sort of thought, oh well, I just call myself it. It's fine, but it doesn't actually matter to me now.
Suck my fucking
That
dick.
sounds flippant. It matters so much. It's my identity,
Suck my
but it's
fucking
getting to the
dick.
bottom of it. I don't find that a priority
Suck
anymore.
my fucking dick.
Which
Suck
I'm
my
happy about.
motherfucking
But when I
dick,
was looking into it, I did find this video you did about what is subculture, what is
Suck
goth,
my motherfucking dick,
and
bitch.
you'd gone into the 4 indicators
March!
of subcultural substance and come up with your own 4 markers of goth identity. I think they aligned with what I just
Suck
said
my
before,
dick,
the
bitch.
appreciation of goth music being the top one. The aesthetic, the sartorial idioms,
March!
of goth, looking like your stereotypical goth, even though it still gets confused with
March!
emo and metalheads and even anything alternative. Oh my gosh, the amount of time people call goth emo, and I'm like, that's not what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I want to get into that
March!
the gatekeeping conversation, but yeah. For sure.
Oh yeah, we'll get that. And the embracing darkness. So that's kind of what we've just started talking about that, haven't we? The gothic literature,
fucking your
the beauty in the uncanny and abnormal. But the one that I was really interested in, that I
Hell
hadn't
no.
considered, this 4th one,
Fuck
an
you.
active pursuit of incorporating
I'm
these
gonna kick
ideologies
your ass.
into your life.
Ask me again.
these
Ask
rituals
me again.
into, some
Ask
sort
me
of
again.
communal
Ask me
interaction.
again, and I'm going to block.
Yeah,
Ask
so
me
it's being
again, and I'm
active
going to
on the
block
scene,
you.
in short,
Ask me
isn't it?
again,
That's
and
what you
my.
meant there.
Ask me again, and
Yeah,
my.
exactly,
Ask
yeah,
me again, and I'm. Ask me
I think
again, and
that's,
I'm going. Ask me again, and I'm going to
that's
block
the
your black
community
ass,
part, right? I
even
think,
if it ain't white.
That's important in Goth.
Oh,
I think that's how
you
a lot of
butthurt.
Goth just sort of began.
Are you
in
ass
the
sore?
first place
Ass
and
too sore to
continues
finish
this
this
day
game because
is
it's ringing fire around your
that,
asshole? When my dick has
network,
been
that
dicking you
web
up
of
this whole game
interactions,
long.
that reciprocal
Got a ring of
enmeshment
fire on your
with
asshole
a
like a
group of
hemorrhoid
people
because
and this sort of,
my dick fucked it so hard and got
art
pulled
and
out.
culture
It
and
pulled out your testes.
creations. And I don't think that's
gave
unique
you a huge
necessarily
ass
to
hemorrhoid.
Goth, but I do think that's been a implicit aspect. Is like people say, go out to a club, go
This
to a
is
concert,
boring.
go to a meetup, and that's really what keeps the community.
Suck my slut.
In 2015, when NASA's New Horizons spacecraft flew past Pluto and sent back its first close-up images, scientists around the world were stunned. What those images revealed was a Pluto entirely different from what we had imagined. On its surface, icy volcanoes erupt, where frozen lava bursts upward and solidifies almost instantly in the frigid atmosphere. Smooth plains of nitrogen ice stretch across the landscape, remarkably free of impact craters. This suggests that Pluto is still geologically active, possibly holding signs of hidden, primitive life. Could it be that beneath its frozen shell lies a subsurface ocean? One of Pluto's most intriguing regions is Sputnik Planitia, a vast, heart-shaped plain made primarily of frozen nitrogen and methane. In this strange terrain, the movement of materials appears to mimic convection in Earth's mantle, hinting at a mysterious internal heat source we have yet to fully understand, though it resides on the distant edge of the solar system. Pluto maintains a thin atmosphere made mostly of nitrogen, and yet it experiences climate shifts on a timescale of centuries, sometimes producing thin clouds and hazes. Could Pluto have undergone climate cycles of its own, much like of centuries, sometimes producing thin clouds and hazes? Could Pluto have undergone climate cycles of its own, much like Earth, but written in an entirely alien rhythm? All of this makes Pluto a world of contradictions.
Let's do some
remote
cheating,
yet
just for the hell
dynamic,
of it.
frozen yet possibly alive. A strange, beautiful mystery still waiting to be explored. Pluto was once hailed as the ninth planet of the solar system. Ever since its discovery in 1930 by astronomer Clyde Tombaugh. But in 2006, a seismic shift occurred. The International Astronomical Union introduced a new definition of the word planet, requiring any celestial object to meet 3 criteria. It must orbit the sun, it must have enough mass for its gravity to form it into a sphere, and it must have cleared its orbital path of other debris.
God damn it, oh.
Pluto met the first 2 conditions, but failed the third. It shares its orbital space with countless other objects in the Kuiper Belt. And so, Pluto was officially downgraded to a dwarf planet. The decision ignited immediate controversy. Many scientists, including members of NASA and even the New Horizons mission team, challenged the new classification. They argued that Pluto is more than just a small body. It has an atmosphere, it has towering mountain ranges, it shows evidence of geological activity, and it may even harbor a subsurface ocean beneath its icy shell.
Come and get your fucking dick sucked, you fucking bitch.
The mystery was fueled by the technological limitations
Come and
of the
get your
time.
fucking dick sucked.
Images of Pluto, even from the Hubble Space Telescope, were no more than faint, blurry specks. As strange as it sounds, this made sense.
Come and get your fucking
Pluto
dick
is so small and so far away that its angular diameter in the sky is extremely tiny. Smaller than that of distant galaxies. Diameter in the sky is extremely tiny. Smaller than that of distant galaxies millions of light years away, which appear clearer simply because they cover a larger visual angle. That very blurriness added to Pluto's mystique.
Come and get your fucking dick sucked.
A planet once celebrated, then cast out, yet never forgotten. A world that continues to defy our understanding of the cosmos.
Come and get your dick sucked, you motherfucker.
And perhaps, deep down, we wonder, did we underestimate a world we've never truly seen?
Suck my fucking dick.
But the question of Pluto's status as a planet is just the beginning.
Come and get your
what
dick
came
sucked.
next, towering ice mountains, youthful nitrogen plains, and hints of a hidden ocean may very well force us to rewrite the definition of planet itself.
Come
on
and get your
January
fucking
19,
dick sucked.
2006,
Suck my
while
dick,
debates
bitch.
still raged over Pluto's planetary status,
Suck my fucking
NASA
dick.
launched New Horizons, a spacecraft on one of the most ambitious journeys humankind had ever attempted, a voyage of over 3 billion miles through the solar system to reach a frozen world no
Suck my
spacecraft
dick,
had ever
you
touched.
motherfucker. Suck my fucking
Then,
dick.
in July 2015, After 9 years drifting through the vastness of space, the first images began streaming back. They shattered everything we thought we knew. Pluto wasn't a barren, lifeless rock. It was dynamic, mysterious, unlike anything we had seen before. Front and center was Sputnik Planitia, a massive heart-shaped plane.
Have you ever imagined what it would be like to board a spacecraft and leave behind Earth's familiar blue-green glow, venturing through the dark void toward the worlds dotted across our solar system? The trip to the moon, just over there, at 384,000 kilometers, took 3 days back in the Apollo era. A lot of people think, well, if 3 days was enough to set foot on the moon, how long would it take to reach our planetary neighbors? 10 days? 20? A month at most? The truth is far more striking. Get ready. Today, you're going to find out, planet by planet, how long it would really take to get there, and why every minute on board would be an extraordinary feat of human engineering. By the end, you'll look up at the night sky with fresh eyes, and if you enjoy this journey, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss any space adventures. Before we map our routes, we need to talk about orbits. Planets don't trace perfect circles, but ellipses. Sometimes a body is closer to the sun, perihelion, and other times it's farther away, aphelion. They also don't move at the same pace. The farther a planet is from the sun, the slower it travels. Imagine planning a bus trip when all the bus stops are in motion. That's how interplanetary missions work. Heading straight toward your target makes no sense, because by the time you arrive, the destination has already moved. That's why engineers use curved paths like a Hohmann transfer. A single push sends a spacecraft onto an orbit that meets its target at just the right point, saving fuel. When possible, we combine this trick with a gravity assist. The spacecraft swings by a planet or moon, steals a bit of its orbital energy, and gains speed without burning extra propellant. How long would it take us to get to Mercury? It sounds simple, but behind that curiosity is a planet that, despite being the smallest in the solar system, holds essential clues to the cosmic childhood that shaped everything around us. Because it hugs the sun, Mercury works like a window into the past. Its crater-packed surface, traces of ancient volcanism, and an active metallic core that sustains a surprisingly strong magnetic field for such a small world. Investigating that field, understanding the composition of the interior, and deciphering the scars in the crust isn't just curiosity. It's a direct way to shed light on how planets formed and evolved. Even the possibility of liquid water in the past, as extreme as it sounds, has already been raised. If that ever happened, it opens a fascinating door to ask whether conditions favorable to life could have briefly emerged, even if only for a short time. But before we study anything, we have to get there. And the trip depends on a set of variables. Speed, the distance between planets, type of propulsion, and, above all, how to brake at the right moment. As a reference, the Parker Solar Probe has already exceeded 692,000 kilometers per hour, 430,000 miles per hour, in its close passes by the sun. Even so, on an optimistic trajectory, it would take us more than 4 months to reach Mercury. Why? Because the distances never stop changing. In elliptical orbits, planets move closer and farther away. There is no single fixed distance between Earth and Mercury. When they're on the same side of the sun, in the alignment called inferior conjunction, the route shortens and can drop to something on the order of tens of millions of miles. In other geometries, the separation grows a lot. Mercury, by the way, has the most eccentric orbit in the solar system, eccentricity approximately 0.21, while Venus is much more round, eccentricity approximately 0.06, and that alone scrambles all the calculations. In practice, nobody points a rocket straight at Mercury and hits a button. You have to choreograph the journey like a physics ballet, use launch windows, transfer trajectories, and, almost always, gravity assists. That's how the missions that have gone there did it. In 1973, Mariner 10 used a gravitational boost from Venus and took about 6 months to its first Mercury flybys, delivering the first close-up images. Decades later, Messenger, 2004, ran a marathon of maneuvers. Decades later, Messenger, 2004, gravitational boost from Venus and took about 6 months to its first Mercury flybys, delivering the first close-up images. Decades later, Messenger, 2004, ran a marathon of maneuvers with Earth and Venus before finally entering Mercury orbit, a feat that took roughly 6.5 years of travel and another 4 years studying the planet until the fuel ran out. Today, Bepi Colombo, ESA/JAXA, launched in 2018, is on its way, using solar electric propulsion combined with multiple gravity assists with Earth, Venus, and Mercury itself, to only then settle into the destination. Notice the pattern. Flying fast is easy. Entering orbit is hard. To orbit, the probe has to arrive slow enough relative to the planet to be captured by gravity. And in a vacuum, braking is energy expensive. Can we shorten the trip? Partly. Gravity assists move the clock forward, but they demand surgical precision. Mistime it, and the spacecraft will miss the assisting planet. And unlike Earth and Mars, Mercury doesn't offer a robust atmosphere to help brake with aerobraking. The descent relies almost entirely on engines. Add to that the extreme thermal challenge near the sun, and you see why long-duration flights end up being, paradoxically, the more economical path. When the question shifts to Venus, the glow gets brighter and the story heats up. Literally, Venus is the brightest object in the sky after the sun and moon. It shines because its atmosphere reflects a lot of light, and because, cyclically, it comes very close to Earth. But again, close is a moving picture. Orbits are elliptical, and alignments vary. At inferior conjunction, when Earth and Venus are on the same side of the Sun, the distance drops to a minimum that repeats in patterns of about 8 years, thanks to the almost periodic dance between the two planets. Over time, the average distance varies a lot, so no one serious answers. What's the distance to Venus, with a single number? What we can say is that Venus has the most circular orbit among the planets, and because of that, its behavior is more predictable than Mercury's. Why go to Venus? Besides being the hottest planet, surface pressure approximately 92 times Earth's and oven-like temperatures, it may have been habitable billions of years ago, until a runaway greenhouse effect dried the world out and turned the crust into a geological pressure cooker. To probe that past, humanity has sent a lot there, with a historical success rate that actually surpasses Mars. The Soviet Union's Venera 1, 1961, was the pioneer on the way, but lost contact early. It's estimated to have passed about 100,000 kilometers from the planet after 97 days of flight. Mariner 2, 1962, made the first successful flyby in 110 days. In 1978, Pioneer Venus 1 entered orbit after a 198-day journey. ESA's Venus Express, 2005, traveled for 153 days before settling around the planet. Why so much variation? Because arriving isn't the same as staying. Flyby missions can take faster routes. To orbit safely, it's common to adopt longer, more fuel-efficient paths. On average, successful trips to Venus landed somewhere between about 4 to 6 months, with records around 109 to 110 days and longer routes near 200 days. Aiming high with more efficient engines, nothing prevents talk one day of 60 to 80 days. But landing and surviving on the surface is another chapter. The only images of the ground came from Venera 9 and 10, which lasted 53 and 65 minutes before succumbing to heat and sulfuric acid corrosion. When the destination is Mars, the question changes tone. Beyond how long, it becomes how and who. The path to the Red Planet has been blazed in both cooperation and competition by NASA and SpaceX. The former makes safety and redundancy its North Star. The latter bets on tech leaps and aggressive reuse. And, interestingly, these visions complement each other. Distance. In 2003, Earth and Mars came within about 56 million kilometers, one of the closest approaches on record. In other periods, the separation more than doubles. If we play with the speed of light, travel time would vary from something like 3 minutes when they're closest to more than 20 minutes when they're farthest, on average about 12.5 minutes for a photon. For real spacecraft, the game changes. New Horizons, on its way to Pluto, left Earth at approximately 58,000 kilometers per hour. At that pace, Mars could be reached in about 162 days at average distance, roughly 289 days in the worst conditions, and, in a very favorable alignment, around 39 days as a theoretical number. And if we used Parker Solar Probe's peak speed, in pure hypothesis, in the closest scenarios, the math drops to about 93 hours. In the farthest, close to 29 days. But that's a thought experiment. Real trajectories aren't straight lines, and cutting through the sun isn't on the table. In real life, engineers use a Hohmann transfer, the elegant ellipse that leaves Earth's orbit and kisses Mars's, with a launch window every 26 months. It's the most efficient method we know. The trip usually lands around 9 months, and a round-trip plan, with stay and return window, can total up to 21 months. Trading efficiency for speed means burning a lot more propellant and reducing payload, and still dealing with the psychological impact of months in a tight cylinder, far from Earth. That's where the fire engines and Starship come in. Very high thrust, reusability, lower costs per attempt.
Man, I fucked your
If those
butt.
pieces deliver what they promise,
But I wonder if I would have
Mars
fucked his
stops
butt if
being
he
an
had
almost
all the time in the
insurmountable
game.
barrier and
The
becomes a
world.
matter of scheduling, budget, and acceptable risk.
It
And
was
why
a
would
good sport,
anyone
though.
choose to go to Jupiter? Even without a solid surface, the solar system's largest planet is a living laboratory. Continent-scale storms, a colossal magnetic field, and, above all, a moon system that looks like a miniature solar system. Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto may hide global oceans beneath ice. Perhaps the best place to look for life beyond Earth. But is it far? Because Earth and Jupiter run on different tracks, the distance between them varies. In the best configurations, about 365 million miles. In the worst, near 600 million miles. On average, around 483 million miles. That's so much road that if you drove at 110 kilometers per hour without stopping, you'd need centuries. The trip depends again on alignments and on how much energy you invest to speed up. On average, around 483 million miles. That's so much road that if you drove at 110 kilometers per hour without stopping, you'd need centuries. The trip depends again on alignments and on how much energy you invest to speed up and, especially, to slow down. Looking at past missions helps set expectations. Pioneer 10 was the first to arrive. Direct route, about 640 days. Pioneer 11 and the Voyagers also went fast and passed relatively close, tens of thousands of kilometers. But they didn't stay. They used Jupiter's gravity as a slingshot to gain speed toward the outer solar system. Galileo was patient. Almost 6 years to enter orbit, on a VEGA-style route, Venus-Earth gravity assists, to arrive at the right speed and remain there for years. Time and fuel paid up front in exchange for high-quality science. In 2006, New Horizons cut the path in about 405 days to Jupiter, using the giant's push to accelerate toward Pluto. The pass even added a bonus of approximately 8,700 miles per hour to its speed. And today, Juno is studying Jupiter's magnetic field and interior up close, on a plan that also required patience to enter and maintain orbit. Talking about humans out there exposes current limits. If we generalize efficient trajectory math, a leg to Jupiter can take nearly 6 years. Just for food, the classic estimate for 4 people passes 8,000 pounds per year. Something like 48,000 pounds for the trip out, not counting the return. Add water, air, radiation shielding, and trucks worth of electronics. Protection against energetic solar particles and cosmic rays demands mass and engineering. And the psychological effects of such a long confinement, with Earth a pale point in the window, are real. That's why, while logistics for mature crews aren't dialed in, we keep investing in robots. In the short and medium term, 2 missions should light up our curiosity. NASA's Europa Clipper, with launch planned and arrival around 2031 after a long route to enter Jovian orbit safely. And ESA's JUICE, which launches, makes its assist, and arrives around 2029 for a dedicated tour of the icy moons. Again, note the pattern. To stay, the trip takes longer. To pass by,
it goes faster. And Saturn? Who hasn't looked through a small telescope and been left breathless by those perfect rings? They hide questions that don't fit in a single video. How they form, why the colors vary, why the planet glows a little on its own. How many more moons will surprise us? The icing on the cake goes by the names Titan and Enceladus. One world with seas of methane and another moon that vents plumes of salty water. But the first question is still distant.
Bitch, you suck my
Again,
dick, bitch.
everything changes all the time. In the best case, around 1.2 billion kilometers. In the worst, more than 1.7 billion. Cassini, which spent 13 years writing Saturn's encyclopedia, didn't go straight. It made 2 Venus flybys, returned to Earth, got a push from Jupiter, and only then dove into the realm of rings. Pioneer 11 took more than 6 years. Voyager 1, in an excellent alignment, arrived in about 3 years and 2 months. Voyager 2, in about 4 years. Cassini ran a 7-year marathon to arrive already at the right speed to be captured. New Horizons, on a passing trajectory, set a record, roughly 2 years and 4 months to cross Saturn's orbit. The reason for the differences is already clear. Root, number of assists, engine power, and, above all, the need, or not, to brake for orbit. And people? The same math that makes Jupiter hard makes Saturn even harder. Crude means multiplying mass,
dumbass.
Bigger capsule,
you, my dear, I'm getting
life support systems.
I'm getting in this business. I'm getting in this business. I'm getting
Some
in
encourage the imagination with estimates that a human itinerary could take 8 years to arrive, and the return would depend on a ballet with Jupiter in a perfect position for a slingshot home. Not to mention the radiation package, the stress, and everything we're only now relearning to manage with the Artemis program. That's why the most logical path for now is still to send robots and learn from them, step by step. At the outer limit of the giant planets, a pair of bluish worlds show up that look like twins at first glance, but tell different stories when you get close. Uranus and Neptune. Today we know that blue here doesn't mean oceans. It's chemistry. An atmosphere of hydrogen and helium, seasoned with methane, ammonia, water, and hydrogen sulfide, absorbs red and returns that blue-green hue. Uranus in particular is a collection of oddities. It spins on its side, with its axis tilted approximately 98 degrees, has a magnetic field misaligned by almost 60 degrees, and offset from the center, and seems to shed little internal heat, something that may relate to a major past impact, jumbling the internal layers and even explaining the more washed-out tone compared to Neptune. Voyager 2's images in 1986 showed a serene disk, almost no bands or obvious storms. Infrared telescopes later revealed the calm isn't total, but Uranus is still the least turbulent of the club. Neptune, on the other hand, is pure dynamism, winds up to 1,700 kilometers per hour, large dark spots that appear and vanish, and a stirred-up atmosphere that prevents the photochemical haze from forming the way it does on Uranus, where it mutes contrast.
They ain't no getting out.
The moons tell the other half of the
whore.
story. Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Titania, and Oberon, the 5 largest of Uranus, show young surfaces, giant escarpments. Corona Rupes may offer more than 20 kilometers of freefall, and signs of cold geology made of ice and water instead of molten rock. When we look at exoplanets, we see why all of this shot up in priority.
This is boring as fuck.
Popular among Assembly of God members. His lawyer would later call him one of the top 13 officials.
You suck my dick, bitch.
Aaron in Faraday, Louisiana. Willie worked as a Pentecostal preacher at the Assembly of God Church in Wisner, Louisiana, while Minnie was a homemaker. Willie and Minnie were
Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch. You suck my dick, bitch. Suck my fucking dick. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch. Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. You suck my dick, bitch. Suck my fucking dick. Stupid! It's because I was fucking stupid.
had to talk to police, they were coached on what to say to make it seem like everything was fine and there was no problem. So there were times throughout the years that people would report them and the police would come and they would do a raid and stuff like that, but they would either not find any children, or the children were like trained to speak to them with their little military thing, very proper, very nice, and they were like, you know what, this is kind of cute, like, okay, I guess it's not that big of a deal, like, they're just good Christians, like, it's not a problem.
Come on, you dick sucker.
Also, another thing that Deborah was doing was going on missions again, but now to Africa. They would go on these missions in Africa, and they were looking for land there because Deborah had this idea, like, listen, the pressure is getting kind of hot here in the States. Maybe we should buy property in Africa, and we have already our missionary there. We'll get our followers and everything, and nobody will bother us. Like, the American authorities will be off our backs. But then also in 1997, she gets this idea. And the idea is that she comes home from a mission one day.
She
tells her daughter, Sarah, who now has had her second child very recently, and so she is still lactating and breastfeeding and looks like someone who just gave birth. And she tells her daughter, Sarah, I have this amazing idea. There is a woman in Uganda who's pregnant, and we're going to take the baby because we're going to give the baby a better life, and it's just best that the baby's with us. But we need to do like a closed adoption. We don't really want people getting involved in doing anything official. So we need you to go to Uganda.
Suck my dick, bitch.
Take this baby. Go to the American consulate. Tell them, since you're lactating and you're breastfeeding, that you have this baby with a Ugandan man. And it's your baby, so American baby, you know, half or whatever. And that you want to come to the States with your baby.
Suck my
and so Sarah ends
dick,
up doing
bitch.
it, and it works. And so now it's like the late 90s. They have this little Ugandan girl who they've taken in, and Sarah says that she loved her. She had two sons and this baby girl, and she was like supposedly in love and everything. I mean, I'm not doubting.
I'm so
that
glad you
she
fucked up and brought the wrong
she
goddamn
wasn't
piece.
happy. Sarah wasn't happy. And what's about to happen is pretty fucking sad.
Dick,
the thing was, everything seemed totally fine until a few months later, the Ugandan baby's aunt was in the States. And she knew that this ministry, because they were there and, you know, ministering to them in Uganda, existed and where it was and everything like that. And she wanted to see her niece because she was in the States. And Deborah freaked out. For some reason, Deborah thought that
Suck my fucking dick.
She was going to come and take her niece and say, no, this is my blood, niece. Dick. I want her. I'm taking her. So they decide to flee, to run.
My fucking dick.
And this is where it got really crazy for Sarah. Because they were in this caravan and they're driving across from state to state. They went to Colorado, they went to Utah, and they're trying to find a new place to settle in. And they decide, instead of this small town in New Mexico that they were in, they are now going to go to the desert where there's nobody. I mean, at the time of this article that I read, it said population 58, but when I Googled it now, it had 0 population. And it was showing the years, the maximum was 100 people. Fence Lake is the outskirts of where they were. They were straight up in the desert. And before that, I don't think I mentioned where they were in New Mexico before that. They're a town called, was it Barico? Oh, Barreno. I said Barico, like Jericho. I don't know what Barreno. I hope I'm saying that right. But they were in Barreno when they were pretending to be Amish and stuff with the dumpster bread.
Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch.
According to Sarah, that town, at least when she would go out and do that, sell the dumpster bread, she would have some social interaction, something. Now that they're in this desert where there's nobody, she said that she fell into a deep depression. Sarah's mental health was getting really bad. She felt so lonely. Then, in 1999, a guy shows up and joins the cult. And this guy, he's from down under. Okay, he's Australian or from New Zealand. She says she's not sure where, but one of those. And she had a crush on him. Okay, he was closer in age to her. She was more attracted to him. They start talking. They start going on these long walks in the desert and talking. And she really has feelings for him. And so she confides in him. She tells him, hey, I want to run away. I don't want to be here anymore. And they start plotting, planning, and scheming how they're going to escape. The plan that they came up with involved Sarah leaving the kids. In her mind, she's like, I can't take them with me because I'm not going to be able to take care of them or support them. At least here they have their basic needs met. And that she has a plan. She's going to leave. She's going to get on her feet. And then she's going to take her kids back. And everything's going to be amazing. And this guy is going to be with her. And amazing. Except that's not what happened at all. What ends up happening, now keep in mind, at this point, Sarah is 26 years old. In the middle of the night, she has her bags packed. She says her goodbyes. She has this like last sweet moments with her kids. And then in the middle of the night, she and this guy, they run away. They end up hitchhiking to LA. Then they take like a bus to Seattle, and they're homeless, and so they're living under the freeway. And the guy's like, you know what? I'm going to Canada. I got a visa to Canada. I'm going to Canada, and he leaves without her. And so now she's by herself in Seattle, from being totally sheltered in this cult and not knowing anything about the world. And so she ends up, going to this Christian shelter. And she stays there, and while she's at the shelter at the church,
you dumbass,
she gets a job at a coffee shop.
Come get your dick sucked.
And from there, she makes money to rent a room from a nudist in Seattle, sleeping in a room there on the floor with like a sleeping bag. Meanwhile, over at the, I don't even know if there's a name for it. They're at the Death Force in the desert over there. Deborah is spiraling because her daughter Sarah ran away.
Come and get your dick sucked.
According to a former member whose name is Juliana Godino, but she went by, she goes by Julie now because that's her name, but she was renamed Elizabeth Edwards by Deborah. But she ended up being with this cult for 20 years and leaving, and she spoke out about what happened after Sarah left. She said, quote, "She went cuckoo. I watched that lady go crazy in front of my face." She said that she started fasting like crazy. She became damn near emaciated. She said that she told Sarah's kids that their mother, Sarah, was no longer a living soul, that she was just a dead person on her way to hell. And she started becoming so cruel to the followers that she had.
Come and get your dick sucked.
Especially that little girl that they took from Uganda.
Come and get your dick sucked.
The things they did to this girl were outrageous.
Come and get your
I'm going to give you a trigger warning because you're going to want to break
Come and get
when
your
I tell you
dick
what they
sucked.
did. You're going to be angry. That's probably why I started this video so goddamn heated. Especially, you're going to be even pissed when you see how the shit ends up.
Suck my motherfucking dick.
So, they tortured this girl.
Bitch.
Okay? First of all, Deborah herself basically made her slave. She would make her do insane amounts of labor. She would whip her with what's called a cat o' nine tails whip, where it's like a rope with 9 knotted cords, okay, and whip her like that. They said they treated her like a dog. She was whipped bloody for the most minor of infractions. And then
come and get your dick sucked.
They violated this little girl. And when I say they, I mean
come and
Deborah
get your dick
and
sucked.
Her son-in-law, Peter Green, Sarah's husband.
Come and get
this
your
little
dick
girl
sucked.
From when she was 7 years old. The allegations, this is what the actual court allegations against him are: 100 counts of criminal sexual penetration of a child, and R-wording her.
Come
According
and get
to this
your
girl,
dick
she said
sucked,
she was
motherfucker.
R-worded by him at least 4 times a week from when she was 7 years old.
Come
And
and get
Deborah
your dick sucked.
also had those charges, the penetration stuff.
Come and get your
there's more.
dick sucked.
So, according to the prosecutors in this case,
Come
they
and
said that
get your
Deborah would
dick
whip her in the legs, beat her on the legs, beat her on the body to the point where she could barely
Come and get
walk.
your dick sucked.
They
Son
said
of a
that
bitch.
the girl then developed rickets, and her bones
You
were
don't know
so
what the fuck you're doing.
soft
You'll
and
get your-
misshapen because
except
they
you're getting your
denied
ass
her
fucked.
food. She didn't have the nutrients to develop correctly. And they said that there was a very
Suck my
obvious
dick,
racist thing
bitch.
going on here with Deborah treating her like a slave. like openly.
Suck my
She did all of that
dick.
because she was so mad that Sarah ran away.
Suck my dick, bitch.
Then
you suck my dick,
also tried to get one of her members to kidnap this little Mexican kid. She's like got a weird thing for kidnapping kids and torturing them. Like she's fucking sadistic. So this same person that I told you about, Julie, okay, she had been with them for a long time. She fully believed that Deborah was a prophet. And she said that Deborah told her to go to El Paso, Texas, and quote, find day laborers who had crossed into the United States with children.
Come and get your dick
and
sucked.
keep out for these children who were on the street and shouldn't be on the street, and to take them so that we could give them a better life. She said she was instructed to wait until dark and then to just grab each child.
Dick sucked.
Julie said she knew it was wrong, but it didn't stop her at first. She couldn't imagine disobeying Deborah. So she said, quote, it was the end of the week and I happened to see a woman walking towards the bridge going back into Mexico. She had a baby in her hands and a child next to her. She said she walked behind them slowly. In the moment, I just became mechanical. I had a very cold, hard feeling to act out what she had asked me to do. There she was at the Mexican border, tiptoeing behind a young mother and her toddler daughter, about to fulfill a mission she believed had come from God. But then, just as she was about to grab the child, she stopped herself, she says, quote, what am I doing? It was like a light flashing in your face, waking you up from a dark, dark place that you have allowed someone to push you into, end quote. She said that's when she decided to walk away, never go back. Now let's go back to Sarah. Because Sarah is now in Seattle. She's still working at the coffee shop. And she is enjoying her freedom.
Bitch, come and get your dick sucked.
She's like, I don't really think I could get them back. Maybe they're better off over there, because she had this guilt, right? She still kind of believed her mother's teachings. She still kind of felt like she was wrong. And so there's a part of her that's like, I ran away to have fun. I'm wrong. I'm evil. Let me not take my kids with me and let them be evil with me. And then another part's like, no, it was awful there. My mom's awful. I should save them, but can I? How can I? And she struggled with that. She couldn't get over the guilt that she had, and she missed them so much, so she ended up sending postcards to her kids.
Come and get your dick sucked.
Because of these postcards, her mom was able to find out where she was and the phone number, and she ended up calling her daughter and begging her to come back. And Sarah was like, no, I'm not going to come back. And then Deborah put Peter, her evil husband, on the phone. And he was also begging her to come back. And again, she's like, no, I'm not going to come back. This was, by the way, 9 months after she ran away is when they called her and all that. Even though she didn't go back, though, she and her mom started emailing, and she would also email other former members. Apparently, the computer isn't the one-eyed devil. It's a monitor. It's not a TV. Get it right. Deborah's mom says, this is June 2000. She says, praise God, we are all glad to have had contact with you after so many months. You are coming back. You are going to be delivered of the demons that have held you in captivity. And then Sarah would respond saying that she would respond with a lot of shit talking about herself. Self-loathing is what they say here. It says, she said that what she called her sinful little bitch in Seattle is what she called her escape. And then she said, quote, I still love you all very much, no matter what a mess I've made of my life. And then at the end of an email that she wrote, she signed off as your worthless daughter who is finally starting to see herself.
Come and get your dick sucked.
She got pregnant. Yes, from a guy that she met at the coffee shop where she worked. And so once she was pregnant, she really hated herself. She writes this email to a former member at around this time, and she says, many days I just wake up hating my whole existence of everything that I have ever done.
Come and get your dick
She said, I turned 28 yesterday, and I felt a lot older than that.
Last day,
because she didn't get to go to school because her mom is a bitch. Okay.
Come and get
once she
your dick
gave birth
sucked.
to her baby, she was like, I have to go back. Like, the guilt consumed her. So she came up with this plan. She's like, I'm going to pretend that I'm joining them and coming back, but really, I'm going to go back and get the 3 kids, the 2 boys that she gave birth to, and the little Ugandan girl, and I'm going to get them out of there. So she tells them she wants to come back. They're like, okay. She comes back, and then she decides to ask. I don't know why. Instead of snatch, like she didn't ask when she ran away. So I don't know why she thought asking would work. But apparently she brought up the subject of like, hey, you know, the kids could come with me and all that. And they were pissed. They immediately took Sarah and the new baby that she had, they put her on a bus and they said, get the fuck out of here. And when she did return, though, also, the kids were like,
spit.
Fuck out of here.
Did she have a spitty
Sarah and the new baby that she had, they put her on a bus and they said, get the fuck out of here.
With a spit effect. Man, this is fucking boring as fuck. This is boring as fuck. Come and get your goddamn cock sucked, you son of a bitch. Come and get your cock sucked.
Jimmy Lee Swaggart was born on March 15, 1935 to Willie Leon Swaggart and Minnie Belle Heron in Faraday, Louisiana. Willie worked as a Pentecostal preacher at the Assembly of God Church in Wisner, Louisiana, while Minnie was a homemaker. Willie and Minnie were related by marriage as his uncle was married to her sister. Keeping it in the family was a bit of a trait for the Swaggarts, as Jimmy's cousin was rock and roll legend Jerry Lee Lewis, who is most well known for his song Great Balls of Fire. Jerry and Jimmy were incredibly close, given they were just 6 months apart in age and spent a lot of time together in their teenage years. Jerry got married when he was just 16 and divorced his wife a little over a year later. The divorce was not yet finalized, though, when he walked down the aisle again at age 17. Less than 4 years later, he remarried, but once again, the divorce from his second wife hadn't been finalized. But that is far from the worst part of this marriage, as Jerry's third wife was also his first cousin, and she was 13 years old when they tied the knot. The scandal nearly ended the 22-year-old's rock and roll career. His tour was canceled and the radio refused to play his songs. Jerry's earnings dropped significantly, but he made a comeback by pivoting to country music in the 1960s. Meanwhile, his cousin, Jimmy, not the one he married, was seeking a spotlight of his own outside of the shadow of Jerry's fame. Thanks to an epiphany when Jimmy was just 8 years old, he was able to make his own path to fame and riches beyond belief. As Jimmy recalls, he was standing in line at a movie theater when he said his God spoke to him saying, quote, "The Lord spoke to me. I know that sounds funny. It was not an audible voice or anything of that nature, but I sensed it and felt it in my heart. It was so vivid and so powerful. I will never forget it. The Lord said, 'Don't go in there, but give me your heart. I want to save your soul and set you apart as a chosen vessel used in my service.'" End quote. At first, Jimmy ignored the voice and stayed in line to get his ticket, but when he put his quarter into the machine, it jammed. Jimmy took that as a sign from God to leave the theater and take a different path in life. Despite that, Jimmy didn't join the ministry until he had dropped out of high school at age 16. In October of 1952, when Jimmy was 17 years old, he married his 15-year-old girlfriend, Frances Anderson. Jimmy's father, Willie, had invited him to join his ministry, but Jimmy was determined to make an evangelical name of his own. He began by street preaching and singing gospel music outside of grocery stores to draw in the crowds until he had a following of his own. In Jimmy's autobiography titled To Cross a River, he claimed that he and Frances lived in poverty during this time. Without jobs, they had no money, and without a congregation, they had no tithes. But they got by through living in the spare rooms of local pastors or in the basement of a local church. By 1955, he was preaching from the back of a flatbed truck which had been gifted to him by a friend. With a set of wheels, Jimmy was now able to start a tour of the southern states as a traveling minister. By 1960, he decided to follow in Jerry Lee Lewis's footsteps when he began recording gospel albums which he sold to Christian radio stations. Within a year, he was ordained as a minister by the Assemblies of God USA, the same Pentecostal denomination his father belonged to. The General Council of the Assemblies of God, which oversees all Assemblies of God churches, is a Pentecostal Christian denomination in the United States and the world's largest Pentecostal body. It began in 1914, but as of 2022, the Assemblies of God reported 2.9 million members with 13,000 churches in the U.S. alone. The Pentecostal doctrine promotes baptism in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, the second coming of Jesus Christ, and divine healing, which means they believe miracles can be performed and anyone can be healed from any ailment through the power of their God. The Assemblies of God national headquarters are located in Springfield, Missouri, and as a tax-free organization, it has an estimated annual revenue of $75 million, with $20 billion in assets. Jimmy claimed his God talked to him again and told him to set up a radio ministry which would give him a platform to reach the masses. Within a few months, his ministry had quadrupled, and Jimmy had the funds to establish his own church. He returned to his home in Baton Rouge and set up the Family Worship Center. With a successful radio show and congregation paying his wages, Jimmy had more cash than ever, which perfectly aligned with his evangelical message of the prosperity gospel and divine blessings. But there was one final mountain Jimmy wanted to conquer, one which would make him a household name and bring forth the bounty he felt owed by God: television. In 1954, Jimmy and Frances had their one and only child, Donnie Swaggart. Only 6 years later, the United States found itself in a deep period of change. The 1960s was the era of the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and traditional family values were being challenged by counterculture. Not only that, but less than a decade prior, television replaced radio as the leading source of discourse. In 1946, only 8,000 U.S. households owned a TV. By 1960, that number had risen to over 45 million households with a TV. And what was being transmitted through those television sets were influencing public opinion, entertainment, and increasingly, religion. The U.S. was experiencing a religious revival and church membership was at an all-time high. But people wanted access to sermons from the comfort of their own homes, and spreading the gospel through television quickly started to gain traction. Families would gather around their black and white TVs to watch programs with moral and religious messages that fit into a wholesome image of post-war American life. But it wasn't the shows themselves that viewers were drawn to. It was the larger-than-life personalities of the preachers who hosted them. Viewers tuned in for their charisma, the drama, and the production of religious messaging via TV. This wasn't their grandma's church with hard pews and boring hymns and even more boring sermons. These were Oscar-worthy performances complete with multiple sets and stages, lights, camera crews, and people who directed it all to make sure you felt something deep inside your soul. One of the first preachers to take religion to the masses via televangelism was Oral Roberts, who started his TV ministry in the 1950s. There was also Billy Graham, who was less charismatic than Oral, but found a niche in speaking out on civil rights issues. He's been credited with helping Southerners at the time back away from Jim Crow laws. However, later in his life, he admitted regretting refusing to march with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Washington in 1963. It was less than a decade later that Jimmy Lee Swaggart burst onto TV screens, ready to join the ranks of America's newly established religious celebrities. After launching a radio show in 1969 called the Camp Meeting Hour, it wasn't long before it was soon broadcast nationally. It featured Jimmy's preaching and gospel music, and in 1975, Jimmy went big time when he launched his TV career with a weekly 30-minute show on local Baton Rouge stations. Jimmy understood televangelism's potential to reach millions of homes and pockets. Oral Roberts relied on miracles, and Billy Graham leaned on steady, heartfelt appeals. But Jimmy, in his tailored suits, took it to a whole new level by combining hellfire preaching with rousing gospel music. During a sermon, he once yelled into a microphone, quote, "I'm sick of filthy, depraved, long-haired, smelly, stinky, beer-guzzling, coke-snorting, marijuana-smoking freaks," end quote. His larger-than-life personality and passionate sermons combined with a no-expense-spared production quickly set him apart from the competition. He knew how to connect with his audience on a visceral level, often giving his conservative church permission to go wild in the aisles.
Oh my God,
as the
damn
music
bless his
roared,
soul.
people would dance around, stomp, scream, and shout. Their bodies spasmed as if they were getting electrocuted while they spoke in tongues. This is what the church calls being slain in the Spirit, or being filled with the Holy Ghost. While they were a movin' and shakin', his wife, Frances, would walk around in her shoulder pads and high heels, putting her hands on the backs of their heads and necks, as if her touch was holy. Although Jimmy encouraged all this unconventional behavior, in the future he would never let this spectacle be shown to his television audiences, as he wanted at-home viewers to perceive that he commanded congregants and they obeyed. After getting his sheep so emotionally worked up and exhausted to where they were devoid of logic and reasoning, Jimmy passed around the altar plate promising that God would grant them miracles if they donated faithfully. His devotees tithed at minimum 10% of their income. Regularly in his sermons, Jimmy was clear with his congregation what actions constituted a sin and what the consequences would be for anyone who transgressed.
You suck my
man that I've
dick,
known
bitch.
for so very, very, very long. 11 years before he died with a heart attack. Instantly.
Son of a bitch.
My grandmother loved him. She was kin to him, he to her.
Suck my dick, bitch.
This was years ago, and in our little town, gambling was legal in those days, and slot machines were in every restaurant and every place of business, and this man owned a restaurant. She walked in and told him, she said, unless you get rid of those things, they're going to take you to hell. He turned to her and said, before I give them up, I'll go to hell. A few months later, this county voted a no gambling ordinance. Slot machines were hauled out. State troopers bursted them up with sledgehammers.
Son of a bitch.
He had the best. Finest home, biggest cars that Detroit made.
Suck my dick, bitch.
When he died, if I remember correctly, he had 57 suits.
Suck my fucking dick.
His son found him, suffering a coronary thrombosis. He was half off the bed. He grabbed him up and got him in a car and got him to the hospital. The doctors beat on his chest and did everything they could to try to bring him around. But he died. As I drank that water, I thought, my God, help me. It came to me, my uncle has been in hell for 11 years.
He's been in fucking hell.
With the sweep of time, you're in Jerusalem.
With spitbeth.
The sun has not yet risen on the blackest day of infamy the world will ever know. The night people are there, the drunks, the whoremongers, the dopers, the thieves, the brigands, the libertines. They're there. The good people are in bed. And they're screaming, crucify, kill him. It seems like from 1,000 throats it roars. Hang him on the tree. Kill him. And you want to scream, don't you know? Don't you know this is God? This is the Son of God.
One of the recurring themes in his sermons was a relentless condemnation of sexual sin, and in particular, pornography. He often referred to lust and immorality as a plague which was destroying the moral fabric of society. In Jimmy's world and those of his followers, there was no room for doubt. Life was black and white. Do bad, go to hell. But he also had a way of making people feel like redemption was within reach if only they listened to and financially funded him. By 1975, Jimmy was being broadcast across the United States. Only 3 years later, his weekly 30-minute sermons increased to 1 hour. As senior pastor of the Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge, he continued preaching there, but his church was quickly becoming second fiddle to his main gig on television. Then, in 1980, Jimmy got the bright idea of launching a daily telecast of his signature gospel and preaching sessions, along with a weekly broadcast from his own church. This would be Jimmy's first real taste of mainstream success, as this new format took off immediately. By 1983, his daily show was being broadcast across more than 250 television stations nationwide. Jimmy had become a household name for his uniquely raw and emotional delivery style. But it wasn't enough. He was on a mission to make more than just a name for himself. He wanted to create a brand. Only then could he achieve the God-given lifestyle he felt so entitled to. To achieve great riches and fame, Jimmy needed to become a master of convincing his congregation to part with their hard-earned money. Like most evangelical preachers, he framed tithing as a divine mandate, meaning a direct order from God himself. He highlighted the principle of sowing and reaping to convince believers that only those who gave generously would receive their God's financial blessings.
Now fucking with me,
Jimmy
that
also
goddamn
offered an
home.
incentive for tithing in the form of church merch.
Now,
Gone were the days of storing vinyls and cassette tapes.
Now
The new hot thing was compact discs,
with me,
which had just
goddamn
launched in
home.
1982. Jimmy put exclusive ministry merchandise like his sermons on CD. Another merch item of his was a customized edition of a Jimmy Swaggart study Bible. In order to qualify for the Bible, parishioners had to make 5 monthly payments of $20. His other merch included tie bars, lapel pins, and pendants for one easy payment of $125, or at the time of this recording, nearly $400 in today's money. Many of his followers were so devoted they would leave all their money and assets to Jimmy and his church in their wills, their offspring be damned. While they may never have been able to quote a single line from any of his sermons, they remembered how he made them feel, and because of that, his congregants were happy to give anything and everything to Brother Swaggart.
Damn it.
This went right along with what the charismatic Pentecostal movement preached in the form of the prosperity gospel. Critics have called Pentecostalism an anti-intellectual movement that seeks spiritual perfection through emotional experiences.
I ain't taking
But
this
it
shit.
wasn't all hellfire and brimstone. Jimmy and Francis played it up and liked to joke around with their followers on stage.
Francis' dress is a sign from God that he'll never again destroy the world by water.
Suck my dick,
Explain that.
What's a rainbow?
son of a bitch.
Okay, she's fussing about my
Shit.
handkerchief. Now I want you to look at my handkerchief.
It's not a handkerchief.
Do you like it?